During the House Judiciary Committee hearing, Congressman Scott Fitzgerald pressed FBI Director Kash Patel about how Charlie Kirk's shooter accessed the rooftop at Utah Valley University. Fitzgerald noted that surveillance video shows the suspect was on campus nearly 4 hours before the shot and later seen jumping off the roof of the building from which the fatal shot was fired.
Do we have any idea how the suspect got up on the roof in the first place? I think for members of Congress, especially after Butler in Pennsylvania, it's just unimaginable that there could be some type of security breakdown prior to an event of that size where somebody could access a rooftop.
So not commenting on the case, but having gone to the crime scene and walked the steps that we believe were taken, the roof was actually readily accessible through an exterior stairwell, so anyone could have gotten on it.
Fitzgerald also asked whether the shooter acted alone, a question that many of us are still asking. He pointed to text messages and Discord messages between the suspect and his boyfriend as raising questions. He acknowledged public reports claiming a solo actor, but said the public deserves answers. He also referenced what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, suggesting lessons lost or overlooked. The killer has been identified as Tyler James Robinson, accused of firing a bolt-action rifle from the rooftop during an event. The case remains under investigation for motives, accomplices, planning, and security failures. And we learned from Kash Patel just a few days ago that the people that are being investigated now far exceed 20 in number, at least when it comes to the Discord messages. So joining us now is member of the House Judiciary Committee, Wisconsin Congressman Scott Fitzgerald. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us. And what a fireworks-filled hearing yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, having Kash Patel sitting in the chair, responding to questions at a time when it's just very critical to kind of get some bigger answers to what happened when it comes to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. It was obviously an opportunity to kind of see what the director had kind of at the top of his mind when it comes to information. I knew he would be somewhat limited because it is an open investigation, but I thought he did the best he could to kind of answer some questions.
Well, I was so glad to see you transition to the question of what happened in Butler. I raised this with Chairman Comer a few days ago, where this latest tragedy in Utah has reminded the general public that there are still some pretty astounding questions that have not been answered when it comes to President Trump's 2 prior assassination attempts, but in particular the Butler, Pennsylvania story. And that just doesn't sit well with Americans to have such an open-ended question about events like this.
Absolutely. I mean, it was the first thing that I thought of after we started to get some of the details about what happened was how in the world, after what happened in Butler, could he possibly gain access to that rooftop when you've got an event of that scale, an excess of 3,000 students that were there, and kind of that amphitheater setting. It's kind of amazing that there wasn't either private security or, maybe a sheriff's department or municipal police department that would have, at least taken a look at that aspect of it to make sure that there was no possibility that you could have a sniper on one of those rooftops.
Well, again, there's all these questions about, how many people are potentially involved in this latest shooting, and yes, the federal officials are involved. It's mostly in the hands of the local officials there in Utah, but people have been really worried about looking at these alleged text messages between the killer and the killer's boyfriend, looking at messages and saying these feel very contrived, something feels off about this. But maybe it's just that we're so primed to question just about everything that comes out of these kinds of investigations. What do you think?
No, I think it's healthy to continue to ask questions. And the last thing that I referenced before Director Patel moved on to the next member of Congress was I said, will you continue to investigate this entire incident all the way to the end, because I think there's many members of Congress and many members of the public that still don't think we got all the answers when it comes to Butler. And we don't want to have that same type of undefined kind of loose ends when this is all over with. And I don't think the public would stand for that. So Director Patel was adamant in saying, absolutely, they will continue to investigate until they have all the answers. But I think you did touch on one thing that has become very clear, and that is this relationship he had with his boyfriend or roommate, whatever you want to refer to him as, that there was absolutely some issues there, and maybe even go as far as him being coached into doing this. And if that's the case, I certainly think that investigators should look, and I would be hopeful, it seems like regular police work, investigative work, that they would continue to interview this individual and see how he was involved. And I think when we refer to more than one person involved, you know, it doesn't have to be somebody necessarily that was physically there that day, but there were too many reports from family and friends how this guy just suddenly was a model student, and there were no real specific issues with his mental health. And it was kind of chalked up to this idea that, no, he was just a gamer that was in the basement all the time and kind of became a recluse on his own. That's hard for me to believe, and it seems that the boyfriend/roommate is becoming a larger figure in this whole thing.
I want to step back for a moment. You know, Director Patel has one of the hardest jobs inside this administration, and he's doing such a phenomenal job. He's doing a really good job of cleaning up the Bureau, but so many critics are worried that he's not moving fast enough in cleaning up the Bureau. And for the most part, I think many Americans, even fans of Director Patel, will say they trust Director Patel. They don't necessarily trust the FBI he's overseeing and trying to clean up. Where do you get the sense of where we're at in the whole cleaning up the insides of the FBI? Because we heard Director Patel being a leader, saying, you know, he gives a lot of credit to the men and women inside the FBI. But what do you say to the mistrust and where we are in that cleanup fight?
Oh, I think we're way ahead of schedule. I think Director Patel has been doing a fantastic job in not only wrapping up some things that either were not addressed under Christopher Wray as director, or things that they refused to investigate, which he was adamant and I think very direct in answering some of the questions both in the Senate and in the House this week. And that's as a result of being able to show the data and be able to show the numbers on you know, everything that the president has asked him to do. I think they're way ahead of schedule. And he has restored, I think, a lot of trust, not only for members of Congress, but I think when you look at kind of the public's perception of how it really had weakened in the previous administration and under Christopher Wray as director, that, you know, the transition has been very stark, and it's quite honestly kind of a breath of fresh air to see somebody with such a command of the agency itself, which is great.
It is. It's refreshing to see the right people in the right places, and hopefully we see more results and more cleaning up as the months go by. Congressman Fitzgerald, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. It was good to be with you today.